Is the Bears defense going to be better in 2022? We answer that next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. I'm hoping we can get to 1,000 by the end of the month. That would be incredible. And also, if you're listening, you can also just listen to it anywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports. So we are donating money out to the American Diabetes Association for this month. So make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment. It helps the videos out so much, or rate us 5 stars. It helps so much. So thank you guys, and let's get right into it. So what we're going to be going through today is kind of the Spark Notes version of, and the kind of grand finale of the defense, the position profiles that we've been doing every week. So we've been talking about who do we have on defense, and did we get better or worse? And now we're bringing this all together and saying, officially, did we get better on defense? So if you haven't watched or listened to the other episodes, make sure to do that. You can click on the profile. I have a playlist out there if you're out on YouTube. And if you're on the phone, just scroll down and you can see some of the other ones. But this is just going to be light, and the other ones we go into so much more depth. So we're really breaking down, did we get better or did we get worse? But before we get into that, we have some news. N'Keal Harry, you might have heard of this, just might have. We traded for N'Keal Harry. And guys, I really like this. I really think that this is a good move for the Bears because it's a low risk. You hear it all the time. You saw it everywhere. It was a very low risk move. You're practically trading nothing. There's nothing lower than a 7th rounder for next year. And that's what we traded away to get him. And I like it. I know some haters might say you should have just waited for him to get cut. I like him now because now we can build that rapport with Justin Fields, and also phenomenal blocker and a lot of upside. Yeah, Brashad Perryman that we brought in didn't work out, but I'd rather give this a shot. So I think that it's a good option for the Bears, and I think overall very good. I like it. So way to go, Poles. But there's still a lot of question marks on the wide receivers, and we'll cover that when we go through the wide receivers in about a week. We're going to be covering those, so make sure to stay tuned to that. But let's switch back over to this defense and answer the question, did we get better on this defense? So let's start things off with who we covered and was our most optimistic area. That is the secondary. This secondary, we said better at the corners, better at safeties, and I don't want to rehash it too much, but ignoring like Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson, the 2 returning starters, you look at the slot position, Thomas Graham Jr. or Tavon Young over a Duke Shelley from what we had last year. And to me, Duke Shelley, it says a lot with Duke Shelley, who is your starter, is your 3rd stringer. It shows that whether you trot out Tavon Young or whether you trot out a Thomas Graham, you should be having some plus production out of that position. And mind you, too, remember Marquis Christian? Yeah, remember when he started week 1 and just got absolutely burned? We never felt comfortable about this slot position. I don't know why we didn't do something about it, but this is going to be a better position. And Thomas Graham at least gives us a higher ceiling, I feel, than a Tavon Young. But Tavon Young sets that floor as better than what Duke Shelley could provide. So moving on to the safety. So we already said Eddie Jackson, maybe some slight progression. But I think Jaquan Brisker, I don't want to get too overhyped on this. He is a rookie. And I loved him as a rookie, and I loved him as a prospect coming out. So I love him as a rookie. And honestly, when I look at this defense and I look at this team that we have, Tashaun Gipson was an average starter, but last year I felt he was very below average. I don't think he put up the numbers that we wanted as a Bears team. He really showed some of that signs of regression. Now, as a rookie, I think you can expect average play from Brisker. I'm personally expecting good play out of him because I think highly of him. I think that he was a very smart player in college, and I think he's going to be able to show that in the NFL. So to me, it's an easy plus. I like him at that position. I think he's going to be better than Tashaun Gipson was last year. And even as a rookie, I have confidence in him. But now the last one, Kindle Vildor versus Kyler Gordon. We had Kindle Vildor last year and now Kyler Gordon this year. And guys, I think that we already know this. Even though that you can't bank on rookies being amazing, you can't bank on Kindle Vildor being amazing. And last year, he was not good. He was not good at all. And even if Kyler Gordon is bad, it still will be an upgrade. So to me, let's just say Kyler Gordon is average, and that's still incredible production. That's still a plus. So that's where, honestly, the secondary, we don't have to go through it in great depth. It's going to be a good secondary. I think it's going to be a better secondary than what we had last year because of the new additions. And I think that the rookies and a Thomas Graham Jr., they raise the ceiling a lot more. So maybe this year it's not going to be the best as it can be, but I think the following year it's going to be even better. It's going to be really good, and we're going to see what we have with this very young secondary. But now we just recorded this last episode. You might have seen it. The linebackers. Linebackers overall, the big change was Nicholas Morrow, and last year we had Danny Trevathan. So, or you could say Alec Ogletree out there, your choice. But to me, this is an upgrade. Even though that I'm not the highest on Nicholas Morrow, didn't love the signing, I'm warming up to this because Nicholas Morrow, he was very good in 2020 and then was out all last year. That's why not a lot of us heard of him. So I like him as that opposite linebacker next to Roquan Smith. And you predominantly play two linebacker looks. You majority of the time, like 2/3, you're in nickel or some form of nickel defense with just two linebackers. So to me, this is an upgrade. I think that Nicholas Morrow is a solid. He can get you definitely average linebacker play and very good linebacker play in the pass. But we all remember Danny Trevathan trying to run down people. So to me, it's another plus. But let's flip over to the other linebacker position. And I just kind of frame this as the base because Roquan Smith, we already know that he's going to be good. It's a matter of, I think he's going to get slightly better this year, but I don't want to factor that too much into this. So I think overall the linebacker position is going to be better. But when we look at this base, I'm just calling it base, or you could call it the run position. So whenever we know it's going to be a run, who do we trot out there? Last year is Eddie Goldman. And this year it's probably going to be Matt Adams. It could be Joe Thomas. It could be Jack Sanborn. We don't know. We talked about that a lot last episode. I think no matter who you trot out there at that Sam linebacker position, I just don't really like it. And that's what's scary about this linebacker position too, is that even though that Nicholas Morrow is a plus, I get terrified. What happens? Nicholas Morrow's been prone to injury. Roquan Smith has been injured a lot too. If they're gone for a game, they just get a concussion, they sprain an ankle, something like that, and they're out for the rest of the game, who's going to fill in? This is not a lot of good depth. And to me, when I go back to just like the base linebacker, so Matt Adams versus your nose tackle from last year in your 3-4, Eddie Goldman, even though Eddie Goldman struggled, I'm taking last year because you had the depth and you had Eddie Goldman and you had a little bit more upside. Matt Adams, I mean, we don't even know if he's going to be on the team now because of the arrest, and Joe Thomas is nothing to be excited about. So I think this is where we start to kind of go down. It's all optimistic in the secondary pass coverage, but now it starts to go down. And next, we got to go through the D-line. And if you've watched the previous episodes and listened to us, we talked about this is the weak spot. And we just want to talk about how weak this is. Now, the only returning true starter is Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn, I do expect him to regress. And it's not crazy. Guys, it's not crazy. He had 18.5 sacks last year. He's 32, going to be 33. He's a speed rusher. He's going to naturally regress. That is most likely what is going to happen So he is going to be on the decline. But you look at the rest of the positions. You had obviously Hall of Famer Khalil Mack, and yes, he was banged up, but we're talking purely about the talent that we have now. And to me, if you have Khalil Mack, I love Trevis Gipson, but Khalil Mack is a Hall of Famer. I give me Khalil Mack over Trevis Gipson. That is a downgrade. I think that Trevis Gipson, or on my graphic, Trevos Gipson, is going to be better. I think he's going to be better this year, but he's not going to be a Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame play out of Trevis Gipson this year, I would say. But then also, you look at this interior, and this is just where I shake my head. If you listen to that episode, it was hard to get through because we lost so many people. We lost Eddie Goldman. We lost Bilal Nichols. We lost Akiem Hicks. And now we've replaced them with essentially just Justin Jones. And Angelo Blackson, you could say that he's also the starter. It's Blackson, Tonga. I think that is going to be a battle for that kind of second starter on that interior. I just threw Tonga out here and I have him listed as my starter because I think in this situation, I think he's got slightly more upside because we already know what Angelo Blackson is. I'm not a huge fan of him. And a lot of other teams that have had him aren't huge fans of him. He's shown below average play, and that Bilal Nichols is like the epitome of average. And Akiem Hicks has been great for us. Yes, the injuries, but when he's healthy, guys, he's incredible. And I think when you look at this team, this defensive line is not good. This defensive line as a whole, it's just not good with Justin Jones, with Khyiris Tonga, with Trevis Gipson versus what we had last year. That was a big strength. I remember everybody saying the front seven is the strength of the Bears. Now, for me, I'm going the back seven is probably the strength of this team with the linebackers and the cornerbacks that we have. So let's answer this question. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a question below and we'll answer, or leave the answer below. Did we get better on defense? Let me know what you think. To me, I go back and forth on this because we're going to know how important is the defensive line to a defense. And to me, I think that yes, we got better in the secondary. I don't want to assume too much growth out of these rookies. So to me, I'm feeling like last year, we thought that this was a top 10 defense. We did. We were like, okay, Duke Shelley's better than Buster Screen. Kindle Vildor, we haven't seen him, but if the coaching staff likes him, we felt like we were going to be a top 10 defense, but then we became a mid-tier defense because of injuries and lack of people out there. I think that this year, my expectation is that this is a mid-level defense because I'm just afraid that we're not going to be able to stop the run. This defensive line is lacking, and Khalil Mack was phenomenal against the run, and you lose players like a Nichols, a Eddie Goldman, who wasn't great last year, but still a big body in the middle. We don't have that meat. We don't have Akiem Hicks. We have a lot of pass rushers on the outside, so it'll be interesting, but I just think that because of this defensive line taking huge steps back and not having the same star power and leadership that we had before, I think that this defense overall is worse. I think it'll perform better, if that makes sense, than we did last year because the secondary, I think, will lock down the pass a little bit more, but I think it'll force people to try to just beat us with the run. So overall, I just think that this is a mid-tier defense that has potential and a lot of upside because of this secondary. I think it's going to be controlled by this secondary, and hopefully this defensive interior doesn't affect us too much. But like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know down below. Do you think that this defense is better? There's room for upside, there's room for optimism, and unfortunately, there's room for pessimism, and there's room for somebody like myself saying, I think that this is going to be slightly worse than last year, but not by a lot. Depends on the rookies. So make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching out there on YouTube. Find us anywhere that you get your podcast apps. Just search for Unbearable Sports and Unbearable Sports Podcast. We're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.